Coming up, Liberation, the award-winning play about the ongoing struggle for women's equality, is headed to Broadway after an acclaimed off-Broadway run. We revisit our conversations with the stars of this powerful and provocative new work. Then, our interview with the cast of the stirring, short-lived musical, Swept Away. And later,
I had a dream.
we reflect on Audra McDonald's historic run as Madame Rose in Gypsy, one of Broadway's most iconic roles. Hello, and welcome to Theater All the Moving Parts. I'm Patrick Pacheco. As we close out Season 7, we're taking a moment to reflect on some of the remarkable stories and conversations that shaped our year. But first, we turn to Liberation. Bess Wall's daring and timely new play is heading to Broadway after a triumphant world premiere at Roundabout's Laura Pels Theater. Previews begin October 8th at the James Earl Jones Theater. The 14-week limited engagement will feature the return of the entire original off-Broadway cast. The off-Broadway production was celebrated by critics and audiences alike. Liberation was awarded the Outer Critics Circle Award for Outstanding New Off-Broadway Play, and Betsy Aidem received the Outer Critics Circle Award for Outstanding Featured Performer. We spoke with the cast during their off-Broadway run. Here's that conversation. Playwright Bess Wall describes Liberation as a memory play. It follows the evolving landscape of women's liberation through 2 generations. At the heart of the play is Lizzie, a journalist who unearths her late mother's past as an unexpected revolutionary in the 1970s women's movement. Set in a rec center at a consciousness-raising group meeting, the play shifts between past and present as Lizzie, our narrator, pieces together the struggles, triumphs, and unfinished battles of the women who came before her. Joining us today are 4 of the powerhouse actors bringing this story to life. Betsy Aidem as Margie, a housewife reckoning with decades of unpaid labor. Audrey Corsa as Dora, a young woman having an unexpected feminist awakening. Kristolyn Lloyd as Celeste, an editor and intellectual determined to shape the feminist movement in her own way. And Susannah Flood as Lizzie, the woman trying to make sense of it all, and our narrator. Susannah, as the narrator, at the top of the play, you come out to the audience and you articulate very succinctly the stakes of the play. What are they?
Well, the stakes of the play are that the gains that were made by second wave feminism and other attendant civil rights and social rights movements of the 70s feel like they hang in the balance at this moment, feel like they're in danger of being lost.
We are sisters. We are fellows.
Are we losing this? And if so, how do we get it back?
And you talk about your mother.
Yes.
Inspired by Bess Wall's own mother,
yes.
I believe.
Yeah.
And you talk about her as this dutiful woman who made your lunches, cooked every meal, did everything that the perfect, unquote, housewife could do in the 70s. And you ask the question.
I asked the question, well, I say this woman was actually a radical, and how is that possible? That in her youth, or in a moment before she had children, she was actually leading, trying to create a consciousness-raising group with other women, and how could that be possible? That she sort of started out as one thing and then became the antithesis of that.
And then the play time travels to 1970 to small town Ohio, to a gymnasium where you
a rec center.
A rec center.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
very much.
yes.
And in which you play a dual role. You
Yes.
then become Lizzie, you become the mother.
I do.
In her youth,
Yeah.
organizing these beautiful 6 women who answer your leaflet in the days of mimeograph machines.
That's right, yeah.
Why does Lizzie start this group?
Such a good question. It's not articulated by the play, except that she truly believes that consciousness raising can lead to meaningful social change that impacts the state of the world. So she says, we raise our consciousness, we change the world, which I think is the hypothesis that fueled the actual historical consciousness raising groups.
And the women answer that clarion call. Betsy, Margie answers it. She's well married for quite a long time, and she comes in as sort of the senior member of the group. Why does she answer that call? Why does she come into the rec center?
She's at a crossroads in her life where she, her sons are grown and her husband has retired, and she's home saying, is this it? I haven't even thought about realizing my infinite potential. And she sees this flyer at the grocery store, I'm assuming the same way that Celeste's character saw it. And she's thinking, there's something I could maybe grow into, because I've been in stasis for so long, like just doing a routinized set of tasks for a very, very long time.
And I decide to write a list, just a little list of the tasks that I do, that I have done for the last 45 years.
And I think that her awakening through the play, and any kind of awakening is not just our own solitary awakening, it's a group awakening. Each person has a collective experience of trying. And the part of the play that's funny is how we lose our footing doing that, because you have to lose your footing. Otherwise, how's the audience supposed to sympathize with you or empathize with you? Because it's always when somebody's tripped that everybody automatically goes like that.
Audrey, as Dora, you thought it was a sewing circle, right?
I thought it was a knitting circle.
Knitting circle.
Actually, yeah.
And
which-
so you chose to stay, and likewise, why did you choose to stay? And as you read through the script and looked at the character of Dora, was there something that grabbed you about her?
Yeah, well, I think the fact that Dora arrives at this group sort of by accident, and how this could feel like home to her, even though she feels completely out of her depth and totally childish compared to all of these women who, in some ways, taken control of their lives. So it was exciting to me to see she has a real transformation throughout the piece.
And was there a moment in the play that obviously involves Dora that you thought, oh, this is going to be fun to play?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. There's a scene really early on where she sort of has a breakthrough that it's interestingly enough like the first breakthrough of the group, where she sort of realizes that she is an equal human being and has every right to speak to that.
Well, you're talking about her job, obviously, as a secretary, sitting next to a deadbeat guy that gets promotion over her.
Yes.
Neanderthal.
A Neanderthal. Yes, a Neanderthal who named Ray, who everyone's got their Ray, whose work she does most of,
Right.
and for no other reason than the fact that he's a man does he get the promotion, and she
I think you
doesn't.
put it a little bit more,
a little bit more
specifically.
specifically, right? Yeah,
The only reason he gets a promotion is
it's because he has a penis.
That's
yeah.
right.
Just come to me because they don't want to deal with Ray. And he just kind of shrugs. Sorry, Dolly. Sorry, Dolly. And then I don't know, I guess my mind went blank because then I just said the only thing that Ray has that I don't is a penis. What? I know, I just said it. I really did. I said the only thing that Ray has that I don't is a penis.
Kristolyn, Celeste is whip smart, comes in, has a gravity that she lends to the entire play. At least that's how I saw her. And likewise, why does she come into this group? And was there sort of a galvanizing moment for you as you were reading through it that made you think, I know who this woman is?
I think the first scene, I knew who she was. Within her first 3 lines that she says.
Would you describe them and say that?
She's like, shut up. Shut up. Let them speak. Let her speak.
Is she the one that says the line, a woman not being interrupted is much
We believe that
a
woman speaking uninterrupted is a radical act. And I completely identified with her in those first 3 lines. Just, I grew up in a predominantly white community, a predominantly conservative Christian white community, and
Where was this?
this was in Texas. There's a lot of assimilation that happened in my youth. And so showing up to spaces where I was an other, I found myself more comfortable doing that than showing up to spaces where I had people who looked like me. So I imagine that Celeste showed up to this group at desperation. Because I think, we talk about how she comes from New York. I imagine she comes from a very eclectic group of people, but predominantly minority. And so for her to come back home to this very specific space and to decide to stay, because there are a couple moments I've mapped out for myself for Celeste where she gets ready to take her bag and go. And something stops her every time. And for her, it's the women sitting around her. And I think that she has a really beautiful duality to her, sort of like, I like to think of like President Obama. He's able to hold 2 things at once. And I think Celeste is able to do that until she's not.
You brought up something that I was going to ask about later, but I'll ask it now. And that is one of the beautiful things about these 6 women is the bonds of solidarity that are developed. I was reading some kind of article in which it was discussed that you actually had your own consciousness raising group among yourselves in real life, and that you volunteered at different times your own harrowing experiences with misogyny. And so I'd like you to share those harrowing.
Misogyny, oh my God. I mean, I came to New York in the 70s. I'm the only person in the cast that was like, a teenager in 1970. So, it was all over the place. I mean, there's so many incidences of being, pushed up against a wall by your boss, or, many things of even before our union had any rules or had those any anti-harassment policies, people grabbing you backstage. There was so much of that. And it forced me to think I can either, capitulate, I can fight it, what are my options? And I just thought, I can just stand up for myself. I never thought there was a place I had to go, that I could call or go. I had to negotiate it on my own, which in a way taught me good conflict resolution skills. Now, sometimes it created conflict because I bucked at things like that, but it also taught me to stand up for myself. Not everybody is comfortable with doing that.
Susannah, at one point, as the narrator, you say, my biggest nightmare was becoming my mother. And I'd like you four to talk about your mothers and talk about, if you will, if this resonated with you at all, or your mother held you in good stead to do what Betsy had the courage to do.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. I have a challenging relationship with my mom. And in fact, I haven't, my own mom and my relationship to my mom has not actually been a great, has not been something I've discussed much in the process, and is mostly an internal question that I am keeping with myself. But Betsy, as Lizzie, as the mother character, says, maybe I should have shown you more of myself. Maybe that's always the case with mothers. And one thing that happens to me in that scene is that I do think about my own mom while I'm also thinking about my child. And my own mom, I think, showed me too much of herself, in fact. So I reserve a place in myself for some conflict about mothers that I'm sure I'll be sort of wrestling with for my whole life. But she was, she does identify with the 70s, and she went to Washington and she burned her bra in a trash can.
Come on.
Yeah, she was around in this, and she identifies with this era for sure. And I think that's all I'll say.
You brought up, I thought, one of the most moving moments of the play. And that was simply that she says, and we should sort of explain that the narrator is trying to figure all these things out and wants to ask her mom, who is deceased, about the questions that plague her about her time in the 70s. And so Bess Wool, the playwright, offers that opportunity by saying, you can ask her. And Margie, who's been playing Margie, or Betsy, who's been playing Margie, then plays the mother.
Yeah.
And it's so moving. And that line particularly is so moving. I didn't show you as much as I should have. And I think, certainly my parents, and I think we can all relate to that they were so busy being quote unquote perfect. They were so busy raising you and making you the star of your life that they felt, I can't talk about myself, my desires, my needs.
I don't know if that's everyone's.
Your mother was an actor, I believe,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
What was the most important lesson, do you believe, that came from your mother?
I think it's really this, she instilled in me a sense that I had a right to take up space, that I had a right to, and to be messy, and really to be, to be human, you know, and she did a great job of that, you know, and that you know, the world is tougher for women in many ways, you know.
Kristolyn, your mom?
Lily Pearl, that is my mother.
My mom's name is Lily too.
Get out! How do we
Sounds
not
like a
know
scene
that?
from the play.
I know. Not so strange.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. You were saying. I grew up in a black house. That's what we do. And it is. My mother was untouched by feminism. Untouched. She never experienced anything in that way of independence. She grew up in her family's house as the oldest daughter, taking care of her siblings. And when she met my dad, that's when she moved out. And that was after college. So she spent college living with her parents, taking care of her siblings. So we are very different because that's what they offered me, was choices and freedom. And I was the only girl and the youngest. And I came a lot further after my brothers. So I was also an only child. So I had a lot more freedom to kind of explore boundaries. And I was very good up until probably I got to out of college. I started asking a lot more questions of my upbringing and started taking a lot more risks. My mother's not a risk type of person. She's risk averse. So quitting acting and being a missionary scared her to death when I did that. Moving to New York at 30 and deciding to try a whole new path was what? So she is also one of my biggest supporters. I call her probably after every show because I evoke her as my mother in this. Celeste's relationship with my mother just echoes off of that page. And she's been my homie. Yeah, my mom's cool, but we're so different, so we do disagree on a lot of things. But even in that, she was very careful about revealing who she was as I got older. And that has a lot to do with just, you keep certain things to yourself. You know, she experienced some things growing up. She was like, you do not reveal these things to your children until they can reach an age where they can kind of comprehend it. So I will say she was great about that. Yeah.
Betsy, did you grow up with the idea that you had all the choices in the world?
Oh no,
that your mom.
No. I mean, the choice was that you went to college and that you got out of the state of Arizona to go to college, and but my parents were very leery and disapproving of my choice of profession in the early years, and they barely came to see me do things because I think they kept thinking I'd grow out of it, which I guess I didn't. You know, my relationship with my mom has really evolved over the years. She was a housewife. She raised 3 children. She took care of the books. She took my father's income and invested it. She could have run a company. Wow. She could have had a great profession. She's very, very bright, very well read, very cultured, knows more about art. But her provincial, in she thinks people in New York are provincial, which is so interesting. But but she's provincial in her ethics and things like that, which is also good. But I think it's taken a long repair. And like Mother's Day, about a year ago, I wrote down 100 things that I'd learned from her. And I realized that list is very long.
I think what's present in the play is an anger that these women weren't able to fulfill their full potential. That is the source of a certain anger that is just beneath the surface in the play. It comes out in various ways. Margie wants to stab her husband, right?
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't even regard her as worthy of much more than being basically his housekeeper. And the mother of his kids, but I don't think she gets that. She is not seen, and I think not being seen is an incredible frustration to anyone in a relationship. And either the relationship, erupts, or a person buries themselves, or they go to a rec center and suddenly, go through like you said, a transformation.
And Audrey, obviously your character explodes and comes in and is a little bit freaked out about it. And again, this solidarity of women calm you down.
Yeah.
Kristolyn, how does Celeste handle the anger that appears to be brimming just below the surface?
I think you're seeing it throughout the show. You have little moments, whether it's with Dora, whether it's with Lizzie's character, where it comes out a bit. But that has a proclivity to scare people. And so when we do see it, it's in a way that it is at a completely appropriate time, and it is completely justified, and it is devastating, but it's something that you see needs to happen. And it can be a lot walking around with that, which is why, when we get to our dressing room, we're like, what's the music of the day? What are the good vibes? What are the tunes? But I think anger is a very powerful and necessary thing. I think it has the ability to, I think Maya Angelou said, it's like fire, like scour out what needs to be burned out. And so I think that's actually one of Celeste's most powerful things, is that she carries so much anger, but she knows how to control it.
It can be clarifying,
Yes.
anger. And as the only black woman in the group, Joanna, played by Kayla Davian, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, calls you on it, calls you, hey, you think these women are part of your group? It's us and them.
Yeah.
How does she take that?
She knows. She's not ignorant to the conversation that Black culture has with other people's independence and freedom, other people's activism and their revolutions that they get to have. And this is a controversial thing, but I've said this before. Black people are very nice, and they have been very nice. We are in a country that did not want us, and the fact that we haven't resorted to the things that we see other countries resort to in order to get their independence. I'm like, Black people are so nice. And, being the only, there is a responsibility to uphold the dignity and integrity of Black people when you're in a room as an only, and that is unfair.
I just wanted to add on
Please.
to what Kristolyn said. I think in along with that anger is also this very beautiful compassion that you're judicious about who can take it. And she's very kind to Margie. I always feel that she doesn't go at me with the same kind of ferocity that she goes at other people. And I think that kind of brain that can read the room and scan and know who can take how much, is a really interesting dynamic in the character in the play. Yeah.
The top of the second act starts with an astonishing scene, which may or may not have caused trepidation when you came to it. Susannah, obviously, the women kind of keyed off by what was going on in the circles at the time,
Yeah.
this magazine or whatever else.
Yeah.
have a all nude session, and it's funny, it's moving, it's honest, brutally honest.
Yeah, yeah.
How was it to do it?
Well, I don't want to speak for anyone else's experience, but this scene did not cause me great fear. Mostly because I feel I've humiliated myself so completely over the course of my career on stage that the act of being naked doesn't cost me much. I feel I've embarrassed myself in deeper ways. You know what I mean? I'm not going to meet any of these. I'm probably not going to meet these people after the show. Their thoughts about me, I can't control, and it's more painful for me to imagine them thinking I'm a bad actor than it is for me to imagine them thinking that I don't look good without my clothes. I don't care. I really don't care about that. I've also had a child. You know what I mean? The gauntlet has been crossed. Like, it's not. I don't feel like I'm holding many cards close to my chest at this point in my career. So, but. I also remember that I saw this piece a very, very, very long time ago. We talked about it in rehearsal a little bit. I offered it as an anecdote to the cast for whatever that's worth, where it was a cast of like 6 women, and they came into the room. There's under fluorescent lighting. It's the entire piece, maybe an hour long. They were completely naked, and it was one of the most exciting, funny, liberating experiences I've ever had as an audience member, because at first I was like, these naked women come on stage and I'm like, I'm sweating because in the audience because I am so nervous. And then like a couple minutes go by and like I'm not seeing them that way. I'm not seeing it anymore. It's not a problem for me anymore. I'm just beholding the play itself. And so I knew that could be possible for our audiences. I was excited to give them that experience. I also think that it is cheeky and joyful to have a scene in which women are naked and they're not being sexualized, and their experience of discomfort or ambivalence, or they're enjoying or they're not, there's a range of opinions represented in the women on stage in that scene, is the social event of the play. It's not an act. We're not saying, hey, New York audience, look at these 6 naked actresses. What do you think about that? Can we do that? It's actually an event in the scene that the characters are experiencing. So to me, what that says is nudity is not a problem. This happened in the story. How proud women were to do this in the era.
We have to wrap up, but I really wanted to get to a couple of more points in this fascinating play. But Bess Wall wrote this play in October, was developing the play in October, before the election. And she said, look, I know that however November 5th turns out, it's going to affect how we look at this play. And to be blunt, the predators are in charge.
Yeah.
This just brings a whole other contextual meaning to everybody that's sitting in that audience is listening to these issues. So how are you feeling about where women are after this nasty election with a black woman as the Democratic presidential candidate? And what we are now, the women's movement is now left with what's going on.
I want to say I did the first workshop of this play a year ago. I had the luxury really and inspiration of having this play throughout the whole election cycle to refer to, and it was a deeply inspiring. So I find, just to speak to the feelings of futility that and rage that come up, in this absolutely bizarre time. Comfort in knowing that there are brilliant minds and beautiful, compassionate hearts that are still moving this goodness forward. There are still women, there are still brilliant thinkers, human beings who are looking out for humanity.
Betsy, you've had a long arc of political developments and events.
Yeah, I mean, the loss of Roe is I take it personally. I find it incredibly upsetting because I had friends who got pregnant before Roe, who had to leave the state because it wasn't legal in the state that I grew up in, and then Roe came along, and there was a period where women got control over their bodies. To lose that again, I went on a 62 county search in the state of New York, counting up how many reproductive health care centers there were, how many high schools there were, how many children, young women, were going to be affected by the fact that they couldn't get reproductive health care. That keeps me up at night. And so to be talking about it again in the play, I just, I want to know what I can do. I don't want to just be sad or mad. I want to know what I can do.
Well, one thing we can do is say in this moment that J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump, all these, Steve Bannon, these people who are currently speaking about the experiences of women, they are liars and bad faith actors. So if anyone out there has some questions about how women feel, they should come see our show, because everybody here has rage.
Yeah.
Everybody has rage.
Kristolyn, the play definitely encourages and sparks a lot of conversations. And after all the conversations and all the exchanges, what do you hope happens as a result of them?
I don't know. I got to be honest. I got my passport renewed. I have friends who have left the country and taken their families. You know, my experience has left me wary of radicalism, but I'm recognizing that's what we're fighting. And there's going to need to be a counteract to that. And I don't think it's going to be gentle. So I'm hoping that there can be at least some community that's built up in the midst of all of this, that people find their people.
Yes.
And that people, we're going to need each other. And I think that's that's the scene with Celeste and Joanne is.
That's what Celeste says.
We actually need each other more than we think.
That's what Celeste says. She says, yes, if you're going to burn it down, then you've got to rebuild it.
You're only
going to rebuild it with community and
Conscience.
So we're very grateful for this play, very grateful for you and your terrific, terrific ensemble of actors and this community that you've built among yourselves. So thank you very, very much
for having us.
coming together with us.
Happy to talk about the show.
When we return, our interview with the cast of Swept Away. Welcome back. A show's success on Broadway is not always measured by the length of its run. Swept Away, a haunting new musical, played only 48 regular performances before closing on December 29th, 2024. It was a New York Times Critics' Pick and struck a deep emotional chord during its brief run. Set against the backdrop of a 19th century shipwreck, the show explores brotherhood, survival, and sacrifice. The show lives on through its original Broadway cast recording, released shortly after closing. Just before their final performances, we sat down with 4 of the show's stars, John Gallagher Jr., Stark Sands, Adrian Blake Enscoe, and Wayne Duvall, to talk about the show's impact, its origin, and what it meant to create these new roles in an original musical. Welcome to you all.
Thanks for having us.
I should start by talking about the show. Swept Away is a new musical written by John Logan and directed by Michael Mayer. It is derived from a 2004 album by the Avett Brothers, Mignonette. In turn based on the real-life tale of a 19th century shipwreck, in which 4 men find themselves on a lifeboat for 21 days without food or water. Ultimately, 3 manage to survive through horrific means. It is so much more than just this brief description. It's about sacrifice and redemption and a spiritual journey unlike any other. I'd like to start by talking to you about the epigraph in the printed script by John Logan, and that is a quote from Lord Jim. "There are as many shipwrecks as there are men." And I'd like you to discuss what that might mean in terms of your character.
I have read so many shipwreck stories in preparation for this job. And in terms of my character, Big Brother, in the show, my mission is to keep my little brother, played by Adrian Blake Enscoe, safe, to bring him home, really. And I succeed in that mission, in a way, but I do it through sacrifice.
Wayne?
Well, along those two lines, I mean, I think my character is a shipwreck because he's on his last voyage. He says in the play, I'm too old to get another ship. I equate that also too as an actor. You know, I've told these guys, I said, you know, after this show, I don't know if I want to do this anymore because this is like the cherry on top. And I don't know if I'll ever have something as good as this. So then you equate that wreck with the captain's wreck, you know, and that's kind of how I feel about the captain, is that he is a shipwreck. This is his last voyage. He's questioning, was it worth it?
One of the interesting things about the musical is that you're all identified fairly generically. You are the captain, you are the little brother, you are mate, and you are the big brother. What was the process working with director Michael Mayer in terms of putting flesh on those bones?
The writing that John Logan has done with the script and the Avett Brothers music intuitively, and created text that was specific enough in the relationships and the story for us to grapple, to find something in ourselves in each of these characters, and also to create a story that anyone watching can see themselves in each of these characters reciprocally. So like, I feel like it all started with the material that it was based on, the openness and authenticity of the Avett's music that Logan kind of just like honored with his text, and then we built it with Mayer to, like, on top of that foundation, to continue that authenticity and universality.
Stark and John, you were in Green Day's American Idiot, and John, you were also in Spring Awakening, Duncan Sheik's musical. How does it compare being in this musical?
I had become a super fan of the Avett Brothers. I was following them around the East Coast and going to their concerts, and I had their records. I had an Avett Brothers poster on the wall of my dressing room at the St. James Theater while we were doing American Idiot. And if you told me then that all these years later, the third musical that I did would be an Avett Brothers musical with Stark and Michael, I could never have believed it. I can barely believe it now, but I certainly couldn't have believed it then. So it's been an incredibly kind of fitting arc to have these three shows. Really, they're the only musicals I've ever done. I think sometimes people get it in their heads that I'm like primarily a musical theater actor. I've only ever done 3 musicals. This is the third one.
Well,
you know,
that makes you a musical theater
I
actor.
get three. That's all it takes, right? But
Stark, having been an American Idiot with John, did that help your relationship? Because that relationship between Big Brother and mate is really just sulfurous in many respects.
Sulfurous, a great description. Yes. It is so useful to have history going into a show where you have to be at odds with someone, because you know that there's a clear line between what you're doing on stage and what you're doing in real life. And we are friends, and we've been friends ever since. And so there's a level of trust here where we always know that whatever happens, we're going to take care of each other.
I should describe why I describe that as sulfurous, only because Big Brother is pure and pious, pure of heart and pious. You're the opposite, John.
Yeah.
You are a rake of the first order.
absolutely.
And this relationship reaches a point in a duet of sorts with 2 songs, Lay Your Hand on My Shoulder and Ain't No Man, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Go a little bit into that and what that represents in terms of the fight that the two of you are having in the course of the musical.
Yeah, I play the second mate of this ship, this whaling expedition, and we have 2 new crew members, Little Brother and Big Brother, a man of the cloth, very pious, very, very faithful, and my character really entirely serving of self, no belief in anything other than the almighty dollar and whatever is going to give me some sort of comfort at the end of the night, just entirely out for himself and no one else, but is quite taken with this young, clean, pure fella who shows up on the ship, and I think very much wants to it's not totally clear if it's because he finds comfort in that purity or if he wants to corrupt it further, but he's trying to win him over. So there's this number in the middle of the show, Ain't No Man, and this mashup of Stark's kind of hymn, Lord Lay Your Hand on My Shoulder, which is sort of a tug of war, where he senses that he's sort of losing his younger brother to the dark side, and I'm trying to kind of pull him all the way in. So that's what happens in that number.
And the captain at one point says of the young man, I don't know whether to envy him or pity him. Why?
Well, I think because I've lived my life and I see myself in little brother when I was the young guy, because I actually say I was him once upon a time, all life's wonders ahead of me, and now that I can look back and see my life, that was exciting then, to be where he was. But now looking back, there's a whole lot of regret in my life. So I don't know if he's going to be on the same path that I was on. I don't know if I should envy him because he's living that love of life that I had when I was a kid, or should I pity him because I'm not real happy with where I am right now.
And little brother wants a life full of adventure.
I've often asked myself if little brother is purely running towards, or if he is also running away when he runs from home. You could read it as this is only a
Away from this farm, obviously, that you till with your brother.
Yes. And I mean, definitely I mentioned things in the show, like I don't want to just live this farm life doing the same thing every day where my life is prescribed to me by tradition and by circumstance. I want to have an adventure before I go back and do that. Like kind of, it's a personal Rumspringa, if you will.
Rumspringa.
Rumspringa, yeah, exactly. The Amish tradition where you go away as a teenager, live your life, and then come back, and you at least know what's out there. You can make that choice, that personal choice for yourself. And I think that little brother is kind of escaping a box in a way.
Big brother is pure of heart, pious. What keeps him from being a bore?
That's a good question. Probably chasing his little brother around, trying to keep him out of trouble.
And the fights that you have with Nate, too,
Yeah.
make you come alive in a way I think you've never been alive before.
I think you're right. I think so. I think that there is a regularity and a security in that farm life. And as I say in the show, sacrificing yourself for your family and for those you hold close, that's love. That's what love is. Mm-hmm. The sort of need to try to salvage my little brother's soul in this tug of war between the dark and the light.
What I find so moving and so tender about this musical and so rare is that Broadway is usually ground zero for secularism. There is something about the community, perhaps, that makes us a little uncomfortable about talk of God and the decade ahead, as Son and I've said. Why do you suppose that we are? Talk of God, talk of these spiritual matters that are so much a part of Swept Away, makes us, some of us, uncomfortable. John, what were you going to say?
Just this idea that, that people that hold their faith very close to them, and perhaps it has not been a source of contention or disruption in their personal life, but for many people, faith and religion has been traumatic and has done them wrong, and they've run away from it. It's because of the way it was written that John Logan decided to take this piece and set it in a very young America and have it be about these big giant questions about good versus evil, and this kind of using the Avett Brothers music to explore this idea of salvation in a way that I had never personally really kind of seen it put down in a piece of theater, that I found it so interesting.
I think a lot of times when you are discussing spirituality, you think of it as weakness in a way, and this has the opposite lesson. It says, no, spirituality is the strength that emanates from Big Brother. Mm-hmm. What I find riveting is your aria, As Mate, in which you have a catalog of American sins.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Busting unions, keeping blacks down in the Carolinas,
Yeah.
killing Indians,
Yeah.
Riding at the 5 points, pimping whores. Are we meant to take that to a more universal level? Are we meant to look at America and its really dangerous and seedy past in you?
There is this sense that, like, yes, this is this man's personal confession. He's also using it as sort of a tool to threaten and scare little brother, to say, like, you think I'm good? You think I'm a nice guy? You don't actually know what's underneath the surface, which of course is very much a very American tale. But of course, I think, you know, the scholar could look at the piece and take it as obviously a bigger confession, really about the sins of the archetypal, like, white American man. Obviously, I think is definitely embedded in that text.
And who we are as a country.
Yeah.
In terms of a more global level.
Right.
Stark, you brought up, of course, the idea of sacrifice as the best expression of love that you can find. And there's certainly Christian iconography all the way through the musical. Why do you suppose in America in 2024, sacrifice seems to have lost meaning, relevance? Why do you suppose we're at this point where people feel so loath to sacrifice?
I think it has something to do with the rise in convenience and the fact that we don't have to wait very long to get something that we want, whether it's a song played off of our phone device, or if it's a TV show that you heard was good, you can immediately turn it on, or something you want to order off of the internet and it can be delivered later that day. People aren't used to sacrificing anymore, or even just having to have patience for something.
Well, I think it's you don't want to give up. I mean, that's the thing. That people, they don't want to sacrifice. It's like, this is mine. It's a very it seems like a very me-oriented society that started in the 80s, I believe. You know, and it was all about, what can I have? What can I get? It's me, me, me. There are no public servants. There may be a couple out there, but, you know, you should be in politics and be of service to the people. But no, it's about personal power. You know, they don't want to sacrifice or give up their jobs for the greater good. So I just think it's a selfishness that has come, I think, based on what you said, Stark. It's like everything, we can have it right now, whatever we want.
Adrian, your generation?
I think it's the culmination of American rugged individualism and the myth of individualism, that we are ourselves and we only have ourselves to thank for everything that we achieve in the world. Right? That's to me.
Very mate. It's very much my outlook.
And if you think about the way that religion has held community in a lot of ways, it has been like historically it's been a thing that brings people together. There are other ways of doing it. There's all sorts of community projects that people engage in, but church is a way that brings people together for a higher good, at least supposedly. And so I do think that sacrifice is something that is about social fabric that we are seeing holes in these days in our nation, and I think in the world. We don't really trust other people to come to the rescue. We don't trust systems to help us as much as we used to, and so why would you sacrifice if you don't believe that people are going to be there to help you when it comes time for them to sacrifice for you?
I was introduced to the Avett Brothers by the song No Hard Feelings, which is in the musical. And it's one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard, especially in this musical. I want you just to sort of talk about your feelings in conclusion of this interview about that song and what feeling emerges in you.
Where my feet won't walk another mile and my lips give their last kiss goodbye. Will my hands be steady when I lay down my fears, my hopes and my doubts, the rings on my fingers and the keys to my house, with no hard feelings.
I grew up in Texas and moved to New York, and I have different beliefs than some of my family members. And those things can lead to difficulty and strife and stress. But I think if we can move through life and accept people for who they are and accept people for the beliefs that they have, and seek to understand them, then you won't hold grudges. It's not useful. It is only a negative for everybody involved. And so I love the idea of just reaching a point in your life where you can just give forgiveness to everybody else so that you don't have to carry that stuff with you anymore.
John?
Lately, I've been trying to use it as sort of my own personal, comfort, a warm blanket as we end this show, tragically short. You know, everybody knows we're closing after barely a month of performances, and it's devastating to us. We've worked on this show. I've been working on this show for a decade, and we wanted to run on Broadway for a while, and we're getting a really, really short run. So when I listen to Adrian sing it on stage now, I often think about, how do I want to put this show to bed? I thought I was going to get way more time with it, and now it's over in the blink of an eye. And can I do that without holding on to any negativity? That's my struggle, and that's what the song has been giving to me lately.
The holding on is really what brings us down, and I think it prevents us from being able to pass on to the next thing, whether it's the next plane or the next part of your life, or, you know, there's so many places where it's easier to hold the grudge, it's easier to hold the ill will, but like, I keep, in that song, there's this gesture that I do a couple of times of like holding and then being like looking down and there's nothing there, and the lightness of being able to let go is what that really signifies to me, and I think that is our better nature, is in when we can let go and forgive and forgive ourselves, you know.
I just love that song.
Yeah, I love that song too. And like the show, it's full of mercy and full of grace.
Yes.
And I think that's what people will take with it. Anybody that sees the show is lucky enough to see it. It'll touch their souls. So it's not the end by any means, not with this show. So I thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Patrick.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you.
Still ahead, Audra McDonald's historic turn as Madame Rose in Gypsy. Welcome back. Few musicals loom as large as Gypsy, and few performances have stirred the kind of excitement that Audra McDonald brought to Madame Rose, the ultimate momager. McDonald played her last performance as Rose on August 17th at the Majestic Theater. This revival marked the 6th time the show has returned to Broadway, and the first led by a black actress in the title role. McDonald's performance was hailed as transformative. In this excerpt from our panel, we explore the historical weight of Gypsy, the cultural power of Rose, and what McDonald's performance meant for Broadway. The new revival of Gypsy is one of the most anticipated productions of the season, with Audra McDonald stepping into the iconic role of Mama Rose.
You'll be swell.
The role has been immortalized by some of Broadway's greatest stars: Ethel Merman, Angela Lansbury, Tyne Daly, Bernadette Peters, and Patti LuPone.
I had a dream.
Now, McDonald brings a fresh perspective to the quintessential Broadway story, a relentless stage mother pushing her daughters into vaudeville stardom. This latest production, however, marks an historic shift, exploring the intersections of race, family, and ambition in 1920s America through this new lens. And joining me to discuss this exciting production are Andrew Chappelle, actor and filmmaker, Ruthie Fierberg, executive editor of Broadway News, Juan Ramirez, critic for Theaterly, and Michael Riedel, renowned columnist and author. Andrew, what makes it right for 2024, for this moment?
Listen, to be African American in America is a miracle after 400 years of slavery. So the fact that we live in a world where we have Audra McDonald playing Mama Rose, to me, is a marvel. And I think there's also the beautiful layer here to illuminate the black version of vaudeville. We have never experienced that with Gypsy. It's always being told by white people. So it's like, so now we get to see hopefully, what was it like for Black performers in this space? And I'm really excited to see it play out in this revival.
Not everyone agrees. Columnist John McWhorter raised concerns about the casting in the New York Times, writing, "The idea that a Black stage mother would be promoting her Black children in the early 1920s with a twee song like May We Entertain You is, frankly, ludicrous. Black performers in that era promoted themselves mainly with, big surprise, Black music." During our fall preview, Broadway podcaster Jan Simpson previously offered this perspective.
This is probably the musical I'm most looking forward to, because the whole idea of Rose being a Black mother in vaudeville and pushing her daughter. I know there's been some pushback about that, about would there be this kind of family? And let me say, yes, there was. This story is a Black story as well as just a universal story.
This adaptation taps into the often overlooked history of Black performers in 1920s America. Opportunities for Blacks in vaudeville were limited. White managers would only book one Black entertainer per show.
I never did know for nobody.
Most famously, Burt Williams, who paved the way for some of his other peers, like Josephine Baker and Ethel Waters. George C. Wolfe, who directed Shuffle Along and Jelly's Last Jam on Broadway, emerges as the ideal storyteller to reinterpret this classic.
George C. Wolfe has said, and Audra has said, like, the Blackness is embodied because we are Black bodies on stage. We're not changing words. The time period's not different. We're existing in this thing that was built. It is going to read differently, the same way that when we saw Black actors take on Death of a Salesman. They didn't change a single thing in Arthur Miller's script.
But it
when
changes
you look,
for the audience.
Right, but it changes for the audience because we come in with our own context and our own baggage about, oh, what must that have been? No one's going to talk about colorism, but it is going to be there for us to see.
Well, this revival breaks new ground by centering a Black family. It follows 5 previous Broadway productions that have proven Gypsy's timeless power. Michael, what makes it durable in your opinion?
It plays a fascinating trick on the audience. It begins as a standard book musical where you see somebody who really wants something. Mama Rose, she wants her daughters to succeed. She wants to be in show business. And the traditional musical would play out. The obstacles are put in the way. They will overcome them, and they will succeed in the end. But by the end of the musical, what we realize it is about how unbridled ambition leads to rack, ruin, and in the end, for Mama Rose, not succeeding and being completely alone. And it pulls that trick.
Juan?
It's a no-skip score, you know. Every song is probably better than the last. And also every character has very clearly defined intentions, if not an outright I want song. So everyone is constantly hungry, everyone is constantly telling you or each other or themselves what it is they want and how they think they're gonna achieve it. And I think it's really exciting.
It's gonna come true.
Thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this season of Theater All the Moving Parts. And thanks to all of our panelists and guests for sharing this season with us. We look forward to bringing you more fascinating conversations with creative talents who live and work only to astonish us. Be sure to download the new CUNY TV app to watch all of our exciting and provocative shows, also available on YouTube. We'll be back next month for Season 8, and we're excited to announce that Theater All the Moving Parts will now air twice a month. We can't wait to celebrate an exciting new season of theater with you. Until then, I'm Patrick Pacheco. See you next time.